An Empire of Ice and Fire by Longclaw 1-6, Chapter 75, Rulers of All They Surveyed. Tranquility. It was alien to Daenerys. Not being chased, not being hunted, not having all that stood between her and an executioner's blade was her army and her dragons. Now, none of that mattered. Now she was empress of all she surveyed. Even in the dark of the night, King's Landing never slept. Hands splayed out on the balcony. Dany leaned on it as she watched the hustle and bustle of the massive metropolis. The celebration had been a going concern since almost right after Joffrey's death. Renewed food shipments driving what would likely be a week-long Thanksgiving to the Targaryen restoration. My subjects. My people. They had actually done it. They had won. Dany sighed as two strong arms wrapped around her waist.
"Galleon for your thoughts, my dragon,"
Jon whispered, dropping a feather-light kiss onto her neck. Not replying immediately, Daenerys nevertheless pressed back into his chest, enjoying his spicy scent, one that would always be her refuge in the storms that chased her existence since her very birth. We really have won, haven't we? Jon kissed her temple, hiding his frown. There was still the Night King, lurking in the north and ready to sweep down in a malevolent quest to extinguish all life. But there was no need to dwell on that at this moment.
Aye, we have.
Joffrey was dead. The realm united. Truth be told, unifying Westeros was a coup in the fight for the Dawn. He tightened his hold on her.
We won, Dany.
How he whispered her name, in his low northern brogue, it always made her shiver. I just can't believe it, Jon. In the distance, captured Lannister rockets exploded in the air, fired in celebration by the citizens, freed slaves, and Imperial soldiers.
Believe it.
Turning her around, Jon made sure he was staring directly into her amethyst eyes. Eyes he had fallen in love with since that first meeting so many years before in Pentos. She immediately melted into the kiss. The Imperial couple sharing an intimate moment, so long postponed. He beamed, allowing himself the joy of the moment.
We avenged our family,
Jon finally whispered, foreheads touching.
Now we can set things to rights.
Daenerys kissed him again. Gods, I love you. He smiled even wider. Daenerys loved his smiles. She never knew how she had survived without them. I am his, my emperor.
And she is mine, my empress.
His hands trailed up and down her sides.
I have some news.
A moment of worry crossed her eyes.
No, it's good news. I am now an uncle, and you an aunt.
It took a mere second for Dany to put it together. Her eyes sparkled with joy. Marjorie?
She's headed for King's Landing now, with Jon Stark, the healthy heir to Winterfell.
Named his son after you. Ecstatic for her brother and sister, and for the pack to add its newest member. She couldn't wait for the twins to arrive from Winterfell, where their Uncle Rickon was tending to them. Dany cupped his cheek, stubble growing in once more. The name you so desired. He leaned into her palm.
I've gotten used to it, but it still overwhelms me sometimes.
An image of Ned Stark, and then Rhaegar and Lyanna flashed in his mind.
I am of Rhaegar's seed. I am a Targaryen. But Ned Stark, I still see him as my father. I'm a Stark too.
You are a Stark. As much a wolf as a dragon. She pushed onto her tiptoes. My wolf. The kiss resumed, the tender moment quickly morphing into one of passion, hunger for each other returning after a prolonged absence.
Gods.
Jon drank in his gorgeous wife. If they had been the smallest of small folk, he still would have felt like the luckiest man in existence by having such a woman.
I love it when you wear those dresses.
King's Landing was still quite warm, a saucy trade winds blowing heat from the continent straight into the capital. Daenerys took advantage and wore one of her Myroneer's dresses, one that covered her body with nothing else underneath. She blinked innocently at him. Oh, why is that, Your Majesty?
Anyway, I am
Skipping past that. Danny pulled close against his chest.
I almost lost you, Danny,
he murmured, holding her tighter. You didn't, my love, she replied, snuggling back into him. A certain feeling caused her eyes to widen. John, she said excitedly, guiding his hand to her belly. Feel that! Peering into the darkness, John smiled widely as he recognised it.
Is that our baby?
It is! Daenerys was ecstatic that he could now experience it with her. She turned in his arms.
I love you, John.
Fatigue overcoming him, he kissed her head and let the comfort of her embrace overcome him.
Love you too, Danny.
Line break. Dream. A soft tune left Danny's lips. Spending a spare moment brushing her silky hair, she hummed a Valyrian lullaby, one her brother used to sing to her before the madness gripped him. She loved being at Winterfell, sharing the same familial warmth that her family had had all those years ago. The smile stretched over her face as she felt the wonderful presence of a nearby Stark. Danny could sense him out anywhere. A gloved hand, dark grey cloak draping over her, soft lips kissing her head. She stood up, his arms pulling her up.
Danny,
he whispered, voice low with desire, enjoying the feel of his soft, dark northern curls of a handsome warrior. Danny turned in his arms, ready to kiss him. But instead of the loving face of her John, staring at her was the frigid glare of a demon. Blue eyes cold as snow, lips set in a malevolent frown, a crown of ice resting atop his head. Fear coursed through her. The Night King gripped her wrists, pulling her to him. Immune to fire, Daenerys still screamed as his freezing touch burned into her skin. Jerking upright, covers falling off, Danny felt drenched with a sheen of sweat. Head swivelling around the chambers, she could find no sign of the blizzard. No howling winds, no blinding snowfall. Nothing but Jon's shallow breathing as he slept. A dream, she murmured, resting her hand on her breastbone, calming the tempest within her chest. Just a nightmare. But a nightmare so vivid. Could they be her future? A sign? A forewarning from the gods? The baby started to kick up a storm, grounding her in the real world. Her son or daughter wasn't the only Stark to make their presence known.
Danny.
Jon's eyes fluttered open, voice groggy with sleep as he looked at his wife's fair profile in the moonlight.
What's wrong?
Jon's touch spread a vital warmth back into her. When the time comes, Jon, kill him. She held him close, burrowing her face into his neck. Kill the Night King. His heartbeat soothed her. Feeling her gentle breathing against his skin, Jon prayed her fear and apprehension would cease.
I promise.
Line break. Unsullied guards snapping to attention as Jon and Danny breezed into the small council room. The now open blinds shone sunlight upon the Stark Targaryen banners hung on the walls, replacing the various gaudy decorations depicting Joffrey's quote-unquote military prowess. All in all, in Tyrion's mind, the decor had improved greatly. Daenerys beamed as she approached the woman sitting across from her. Marjorie, dearest sister. The raven-haired woman stood, Danny embracing her. I'm glad you are looking so well after childbirth. Her experience did not go as well. I am thankful, Daenerys, Marjorie replied. My grandmother says the hardiness in childbirth is a hallmark of my family, as are healthy boys.
Which you now have one of, Jon boasted, grabbing Ron's hand and clasping his bag. Congratulations, Robb. A handsome Stark pup.
The Warden of the North returned the brotherly embrace.
Afterwards, I would like to see my nephew.
Wouldn't try to deny you that, Your Majesty, Marjorie replied, bowing. A small smirk danced on her lips, causing all the Starks to laugh. Happy moment passed, and the monarchs taking their seats at the head of the table. Good, Tyrion announced. Now we may begin. The remaining Lannister liege lords have sworn fealty to House Targaryen. However, a raised hand cut him off. Forgive me, Lord Tyrion, but we are missing one participant. Sansa turned her head to Jon, sitting directly to her left. He will be here shortly. Jon's brows furrowed.
Sister, who is left to seat?
The door opened, Grey Worm entering. He bowed to John.
Your Majesty, a Lord Peter Baelish has requested entry.
That is good, Grey Worm. Sansa spoke up. Let him in. For those that knew Sir Peter Baelish, the small smile on his face was his trademark. Woven gamison of gold-coloured silk draping over his slender form, moustache and goatee trimmed to perfection.
Your Majesty, Your Highness.
He bowed, arms extending with a fawning humility.
Forgive me my tardiness. Your unsullied guards are not well versed in the common tongue.
It is quite all right, Lord Baelish, Sansa replied. They are only temporary, while we wait for new King's Guards to be selected.
I'm sorry, Rob began, speaking up. What is he doing here?
I am inclined to ask the same question, Lady Sansa. Daenerys leaned towards her sister. Jon merely kept his mouth shut, content with observing. Hands clasped together, Sansa softly inhaled. I asked Peter Baelish to be here. As Hand to His Majesty, I am exercising my authority to name him to the small council.
Tyrion blinked. Has Davos concurred with this? For you are merely Hand in the north. Sir Davos has been appointed quartermaster of the Empire,
Jon finally replied, having given both Littlefinger and his sister the once-over.
Sansa is my hand for all my domains, and I trust her judgment. If she feels Lord Baelish should be on the council, then he will be.
Are you kidding me? Arya was incredulous. This man was one of Joffrey's main allies. And on her list. While secretly feeding me information for their war councils, Sansa retorted, Littlefinger taking his seat across from her. It was his order that sent the Knights of the Vale to Winterfell, and he who opened the Lion Gate for our armies.
I must protest, Your Majesty, Tyrion said. It would be wise not to trust Lord Baelish till he has proven himself.
Quiet till now, Littlefinger leaned forward.
Pardon me, Tyrion. May I ask where your brother, the Kingslayer, resides?
Tyrion stared at Littlefinger, with lips pursed. He is being held in the dungeon, awaiting determination of his loyalty, which is where you should.
Does a stay in the dungeon usually involve a feather bed and silk shoots? My late lady wife did inform me that even Lannister prisoners aren't afforded such luxuries normally.
Tyrion glowered, eyes dark.
So, it seems you have prejudged your brother's loyalty from your own intuition. Why discount Lady Sansa's?
There was silence.
Tyrion, please proceed,
Jon stated, ending it. Questioning eyes were directed at Littlefinger, except for Arya, who narrowed her gaze at Sansa.
Now, about the long night.
The absence of most of the lords, Lady Catelyn and Quartermaster Davos, was acutely felt. Defeating Joffrey, while ending the bloodshed, left the Targaryen Empire bloated and chaotic. Bad roads, bad weather, and an impeding refugee crisis would only hamper the movement of the disorganised Imperial army to Winterfell. White Harbour would help some. That and what to do about the freed slaves of King's Landing consumed most of the discussion for nearly an hour. Jon finally came to a decision.
Lord Beric has informed me that the Brotherhood is willing to reinforce the Night's Watch. I have decided to accept, and after discussions with my wife and Lady Missandei, will allow freed Essosi slaves to join them.
They have just been freed, Varys began, and are supremely loyal to their Emperor for freeing them, Littlefinger said. Let them build new lives here by fighting for their new land. Neither monarch objected, so let it stand. Their Majesties have informed me that they have several decisions on various appointments. Sansa scanned over a sheaf of parchment. Dany nodded. Aye, Lord Varys will resume his position as Master of Whisperers. The bold eunuch bowed respectfully at the honour. Sir Jorah Mormont will be Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, and I am appointing Lady Yara Greyjoy as Master of Ships. She and the Ironborn fleet will oversee the arrivals of foodstuffs from Essos, as well as new recruits as both of reinforcements and labourers for road building, smelting and mining efforts. Shouldn't they all be soldiers, given the threat of the dead? Arya asked.
Logistics win wars, sister. Robb answered. We need good roads.
Nodding, Jon continued.
I have decided to appoint Yazong Zogaraz as Master of Coin.
Tyrion furrowed his brows.
Isn't his loyalty subject? He fought bravely at Highgarden, Jon replied. He is someone with whom the Iron Bank could deal amiably with.
It still made some uneasy, Dany being one of them. Although I do trust you, Your Majesty, may May I inquire as to the Lady Misande's opinion?
You may.
He didn't take any offence. All eyes turned to the Empress's handmaiden. I have spoken with Lord Garaz, Your Highness. While he is a former slaver, I believe his loyalty has shifted. As a freed woman, I do not make this statement lightly. We have all suffered enough. Dany turned to the council. I am leaving the position of Master of Laws vacant for the moment's being. She cleared her throat. Lastly, I have preparations to be made for Sir Barristan's funeral. Dany asked. The loss of Barristan Selmy had hit her hard, and Jon harder. The last man alive who had truly known his father, aside from the Kingslayer.
That is set for tomorrow, replied Varys, normally stolid voice tinged with respect. Barristan the Bold's reputation was high among all. Cremation and interment of the ashes into the Wall of Heroes. Jon, to his credit, didn't allow it to overwhelm him. If that will be all, then this meeting can be concluded. All further matters may be discussed with Lord Tyrion or Lady Sansa.
With a succession of bows, including a rather glowing smile of loyalty from Littlefinger, the council shuffled out. Better than expected, Dany whispered to him.
Aye. No news from Ed, so that gives us time. I hesitate to estimate how much, but time.
Jon put his hands on Dany's growing stomach, heart warming at the feeling of his child move around. Jon? He looked up from his chair to see Arya biting her lip.
Nervous?
He wondered. Arya was never nervous. Not once since their reunion had she been anything other than angry, determined, or happy. May we speak to the two of you? He noticed Gendry behind his sister. He was just as nervous. He and Dany shared a quick glance. She was thinking exactly what he was, but formalities were formalities.
Of course, Jon allowed. Anything for my sister and the Lord Paramount of the Stormlands.
Shireen Baratheon had about as equal a claim, but there was no doubt that Gendry had earned his lordship on the field of battle. Seconds ticked by, while Gendry quiet, while Arya repeatedly opened her mouth to speak, only to retreat soon afterwards.
Well?
It was amusing to see the great Arya Stark so tongue-tied. Dany took pity on her. This doesn't have to be politic, sister. Just spit it out, she chided gently.
We would like for our wedding to happen tomorrow. Surprisingly, it was Gendry who blurted it out, not Arya.
Jon and Daenerys hid their amusement, while the bride-to-be just glared at him.
It's something that has to be said, Ari, and I'm saying it. Before even the coronation? Jon asked. I mean, you already have my blessing, Arya. But I can remember you telling me, and I quote, "It's just a dumb ceremony. What's the damn point between now and later?"
He cleaned up the language.
What changed?
Arya looked at Gendry, who covered her hand with his. She sighed. I still think it's a dumb ceremony. But as a lord, Gendry will need heirs, and I'm not letting some fat usurper oath-clone take Storm's End. Fists clenching, she willed herself to calm down. Plus, I guess that you truly want to get married. She truly was still a girl at heart, Daenerys could tell. Same as all the women of House Stark and House Targaryen. Passionate, all of them. Faced with the truth, Arya's facade broke down. I want to be married. To the idiot here. Gendry merely grinned. A grin shared by the Emperor. Knowing Arya, that was a supreme compliment. So, I know the King's Landing Weirwood is probably in all states of fucked, but...
If you're asking me to give you away in father's stead, Jon interrupted, the answer is yes.
So radically did his sister's demeanour change. Leaping out of her chair, she threw her arms around Jon. Thank you! Thank you! Part of her hated being so girly, but she allowed herself to indulge. I'm still not wearing any stupid dress.
I don't think anyone would ask that of you.
End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. Finally a peaceful one, like Dany in the beginning. I mean, oh my god. Wow. Okay, Sansa's pulling something with Littlefinger, and he's obviously riding high. Ugh. And that bit at the end with Arya and Gendry, just, that's cute. You know how I am with couples, it's just sweet. And Dany's nightmare. Oh boy. That's gonna come back to bite someone. I wouldn't even try to bet. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Check out my other videos, like, comment, and subscribe, hit the bell, and remember to have a good day, night, wherever time zone you're in. Take care, my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Bye!